Hey guys, one of the things that I think a lot of people probably already know about, but I don't know if everybody does or not, is the impact that the lead block controls have on the actual blocking schemes. And so I wanted to go ahead and show how, like, whether or not you activate or don't activate the lead block controls, it can impact actually who the blockers try to block. So, and it kind of varies based on the play. And I'm not necessarily trying to say that one way is necessarily the best way, or that you should always lead block, or that you should never lead block, or whatever. I just wanted to show you how it's different. And so you might think of some ways where maybe you want to maybe try to use it some, and maybe other cases you maybe not. But let's go ahead and start by looking at a basic ISO play out of the I formation. A lot of people have been trying to figure out recently some ways to run the ball effectively, and the I formation is one of the better formations in terms of running the ball, at least based on real football. So let's start there, and then we'll just run it against random plays out of the 4-3 normal. And let's go ahead and we'll run it first a couple times without the lead block, and so you can see kind of how the the blocking assignments operate, and then we'll go ahead and activate the lead block, and I'll show you how things are different. We'll just run it a couple times here against random defenses, just to kind of get a good feel for where the hole usually opens up and how things work. And again, I'm not necessarily saying that one way is necessarily superior than the other at all the times, or not. Let's run it one more time, and then we'll go down in instant replay mode and we'll look at it. Okay. So that kind of gives you a sense of what happens on the ISO play just against a 4-3 normal. And we were having some success with it. But let's go ahead and break down what the blocking assignments were so we can know how those are different when we go to the lead block. Basically what happens is that if you look at the left side of the line, the center, left guard, and left tackle, they all kind of fire out at an angle to the left. And so the center ends up blocking that defensive tackle. The guard goes and blocks the linebacker. Then your right guard blocks the middle linebacker, and your fullback kind of lead blocks on whoever else he happens to run up the middle. You kind of see how that works. And I mean, like I said, we were getting some successful yards, so I'm not necessarily saying that that's necessarily broken or anything like that. But let me just show you how it works differently if you use the lead block. And now I'm not a fan of using like actually blocking with a lineman. So I kind of think it's a little bit cheesy the way that you can blow open holes and things like that if you do that. So one of the things that I like to do is basically just lead block on the running back. And basically what that does is it gets you the blocking assignment changes without you actually having to worry about controlling a lineman. And also, since you're controlling the running back, which is the player who's going to be getting the ball, it'll give you control of the running back as soon as you snap the ball. So you can run the play just like you would normally run it if you hadn't used lead block. You won't have to worry about like trying to switch back to him in the middle of the play, or worry about the computer controlling him for a little bit or anything like that. And the other thing about the lead block control, just in case you don't know, is you can do this on passing plays also. Because I know if you're playing online, or if you're playing somebody else head to head in person, you might be concerned that they could see that you're lead blocking, and then maybe they would know that you're running or whatever. But actually, you can do this on passing plays and it won't affect anything. It'll just run the passing play like normal. So just keep that in mind. And we'll run it a couple times here, just like we did last time, and then we'll break down how things are different. One more time, and then we'll go ahead and look at it. All right. So if you look at it this time, what happened different, if we go into, is that basically, and I've tried to like figure out what's going on in terms of how to figure out who's going to block who, but you kind of just have to go through play by play and kind of look at it. But if you look at this play, basically everybody fires out like sort of straight ahead. And so what happens is, remember last time the center was blocking that defensive tackle, and the guard was blocking the outside linebacker. And this time what happens is the center goes and blocks the middle linebacker, and then your fullback picks up that outside linebacker. And I mean, you can make your own determination as to whether or not that's what you want to do. I mean, for some situations that might not be good. That might be what you don't want to do. But I just want to point out that it's different. That's the main thing. That it's a different blocking scheme. And I kind of tend to think it's a little bit more helpful. I mean, just when I've been playing with it online, I've sort of been experimenting going back and forth between using lead block and not using lead block. And it seems like, particularly when people start doing funky things in terms of like their alignments and stuff like that, I don't know. For some reason, I just think that like the lead block control just makes the guys sort of dumb down and just block the guy right in front of them. Instead of like you get these haphazard situations where guys are like running across the field looking for guys to block and missing, ending up blocking nobody and stuff like that. It seems to me like when I lead block control, at least everybody attempts a block on somebody. And whether or not they actually make that block or not, I mean, that kind of depends on ratings and things like that. But at least I get everybody attempting to block. So let's go ahead and look at another way, not just an ISO play, but really where this tends to come in more into play is when you got guys pulling. And so the big play that they added this year is the power O play out of the I formation. So let's go ahead and look at that. And we'll do the same thing. We'll go against the random play out of the 4-3. So we'll run it a couple times without, and then we'll go ahead and run it a couple times with lead block control. And again, I'm not necessarily saying that this is like a foolproof method or that suddenly you're going to start running for a lot more yards per carry, but it just, to me, it makes it a little bit more predictable to know who's going to block who, and that makes it easier for me to make, decide where I'm going to run the ball. Particularly, like, it doesn't seem to make as big a difference against, like, stock defenses, but when people start moving guys around, that's where it seems to really matter to me. So we'll run it one more time here, and then we'll go ahead and break down the blocking assignments, and we'll look at what happened. We'll run it one more time here. I want to run it one time where that defensive end is not dropping off into a zone, because that's kind of an unusual play that you probably wouldn't see very often. Alright, that's kind of the play that, when I run it online, a lot of times that's what I see happen. So that's kind of what I was looking for here. And basically, if you note, what happens is the tackle, the play side tackle, your right tackle, he blocks down on the defensive tackle. Your right guard goes and blocks the middle linebacker, and then basically, and then your tight end goes to block the next level defender, and then basically it seems like the game is basically determining that either your guard or your fullback is going to block this defensive end. And again, in theory, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that there's a problem with the scheme here in terms of the way they've got it dialed up, but just in terms of the execution, what I notice happens a lot of time is that this defensive end just comes in and blows the play up, and he just seals. I mean, you end up having to cut way back inside or way outside, and for some reason, it just seems like the fullback, he doesn't maybe seem aggressive enough in going to block him. I don't know exactly what the problem is there, but that's just what I've been noticing. And so let me go ahead and show you what happens when you lead block control, because you get a totally different blocking scheme. We'll run it a couple times just to take a look at it in action, and then we'll go ahead and break it down in instant replay mode. Run it one more time, and then we'll look. And like I said, I'm not necessarily gaining a lot more yards here. In fact, it looks like I'm kind of gaining less. So you might play around with it and determine whether or not you really want to do that or not. But I just thought it was useful to note that there is a difference. And so maybe if you keep having problems with a certain play not working, maybe you want to try to look at the lead block and see how maybe that changes block assignments. Okay, this will be the last one that we look at here. And so what you see here that happens this time, and again, I'm not necessarily saying this is a more realistic blocking scheme, I'm just saying that it's different, is that this time the tight end goes out to block the defensive end. The tackle shoots out, and he blocks like the outside linebacker or whoever's next. The guard takes on the defensive tackle, and then you basically are following your left guard and your fullback as they pull around to try to lead. And I mean, we all know that there's all kinds of problems with the blocking logic on this game, and those guys don't necessarily always make the right blocks. For some reason, in practice mode, I don't have a lot of success with this, but when I get in games and I run it this way, it seems to be a little bit more. It seems to be a little bit more useful. I don't know if that's maybe because people online run like different kinds of defenses than I'm seeing when I go into practice mode or what. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out, that there's a difference between the blocking schemes when you use lead block and when you don't. And I haven't really had a chance to get into it too in depth to figure out necessarily when to use it or what fronts to use it against or what plays to use it for, anything like that. But I just wanted to point it out. Thought maybe you guys could look at it, figure out for yourselves if it's something that you want to try to do on your offense.